Good morning, everybody. I am back in the car, as you can see, backing out. Glad you guys could catch me. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about this morning and touch on is we have a really good example with Joe. I think it's Joanne. I don't know what she actually prefers to be called, but anyway, thinks that her interpretation or her perspective on her squat is that the lift that she struggles with. And I'm going to tell you, there's very few people on this planet that don't have to constantly work on squat. There's a few people that it comes really natural to. It was something that came very easy to me. I just can squat. I'm built to squat. It just was something that I gravitated to in my early days of weight training as a teenager. I could squat. I was just strong at it. And so because I liked it and I was good at it, it came easy to me. But it is the most technically demanding lift out there. There's so many body parts involved, and it is, at best, it's always going to be a difficult lift. Now here's the perspective that I want you guys, all of you, not just Joe, to look at. She says she's struggling. Now, I pushed this set because this cycle, because I thought, and I was right, that she had a bigger squat in her, and we've already been into a week or two before this week. We repeated last week's session as 162 was already a PR, and the weight the previous week was a PR. And so we've been in that threshold of what is truly a 90% level and above in her squat. Now, the thing that she does have an issue with is she tends to lead a little bit with the chest and get on the toes, and the back kind of curves. What is interesting is when she pauses, and this is why, if you're looking for some of the thought processes behind what some of you do, because not everybody's doing the same thing, because I have seen those comments, is I have a basic template, and I'm going to start everybody on that basic template, because that, in my experience and the time that I've been coaching, which has been a considerable amount of time, has worked really, really well. And we don't have a failure rate with the system. I mean, everybody progresses. That's not to say that mine is the best one, but it's something that I feel very strong about, and we can get into that, if you guys have questions about why I do certain things at another time. But when she pauses, that back stays nice and tight and straight, and she's really pushing against that bar with the upper back, and so her bar path is even better. So, but this takes a lot of time, and it's one thing to do it with 60%. It's another thing to do it with 90% and above, and that's what you see. And it can become very frustrating, and it's also exhausting. I mean, heavy squatting is brutal. And that's why the training cycle is set up like it is. We always have a much longer squat cycle. I'll throw a heavy single in there or two, throughout the cycle, just to kind of test the waters a little bit. But deadlift is quick and bench is really quick. And it's the same thing. There are a few people out there, you don't see a lot of people doing 6, 7, 8 full meat squat, or full 3 meat lifts a year. It's just brutal. The recovery is just really, really difficult. But you'll see the bench only guys or deadlift only guys or push pull people will do several meets a year, numerous. And a lot of times it's one of the things we're going to do with Jody, because she's a full meat lifter, but she's also world class in the bench, and it was the one this past weekend that lifted at IPF Bench Worlds. She needs to test the waters a little bit more often and get more platform experience, especially with bench. It's 3 lifts and you're done. So, keeping that in mind, our squat cycles tend to be much longer. And without a meet in the immediate future, we went the full 16 weeks. So I had a couple more weeks that were going to be just a touch heavier each week, but what we decided is that she'd hit a PR twice in this training cycle. Now, how does that give her perspective? Well, I'll repeat what I just said. Twice, well, actually 3 sessions, she's hit a PR. So it's not that she's struggling, because clearly if you're PRing a lift, especially the squat, you're not struggling. Now, is it the one that that provides her the most challenge? And that answer is yes. And that's not uncommon, especially in women, you know, and it's not, I don't know why. I don't know why that is. It just seems to be. And I know a lot of the female lifters tend to deadlift more than they, squat. Now Melissa Kylo, she was a much better squatter than she was a puller, but she was a good bencher. She was much like myself, built to squat, built to bench, struggled with some of the leverages to deadlift. And so the takeaway from this is we're going to keep working. Joe has made nothing but tremendous progress since we started, and has expanded, you know, the things that we've done. You know, the thing is, with a home gym, there's some limitations unless we spend money. I had someone ask me why I don't have someone use a particular, like a cambered bar. That's because they don't own one, you know. And so when you have a home gym and you bought a power rack and you bought weights and you got a bar, now I've bought some chains and I got some bands, you know, and you got a limited amount of space. I'm not suggesting that you guys that have a home gym go out there and buy a safety squat bar and a cambered bar and a spider bar and all this stuff. You know, you make do with what you've got, and if you choose to do that, then we can incorporate it. But we're going to keep working, especially with the pauses, and keep working on that until we get it right. I'm going to do some things. How would I address that? That's what I'm really getting to. Probably one of the things that we need to do now that she's been training with me for a while and her work capacity is high enough is we will do a good morning. Now, hear me out. I am very much, one of the things that I tend to do as a coach is keep some things fairly basic and fairly conservative. It's keeping it simple. And the good morning is a very effective movement, but I try to avoid the big arch back movements. Now, I know there's going to be people out there that go, but Westside and Louie, and you're right. The good morning is a very effective movement, but it's a risk versus reward thing. Now keep in mind, most of you guys out there, Joe is one of them, the only time there's multiple people in the gym is when her husband is either handing off to her or spotting her. Otherwise, she's on her own, and even so, it's just him and her. And these big type of compound movements, like a good morning, it's just, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And so what I have prescribed for some people is we'll use a micro band, one of the long micro bands, put it over the shoulder and neck, and do high rep, and start working on, making sure the back is nice and straight, and doing those repetitions, stiff leg deadlifts. But she does a lot of pulling too, So it's one of those things where I try to temper things, and we make little adjustments in what we do, and all she's done is make progress. And so I've been very happy with her progress, and that's probably one of the things that we'll do. We'll probably up the ante a little bit with some stiff legs, do some things with the band with the good mornings, and keep our squat variations, and see if that makes a difference, which I feel confident it will. But the thing that I want you guys to keep in mind, when there's a lift that seems to be the albatross, really be honest with your assessment, and go, this one's, I don't make the progress. And squat progress can, especially if it's not your, everybody's got that lift that is their jam, and I think for Joe, that's deadlift, clearly. And she's digging how bench press is progressing. And so when a lift doesn't keep pace with the other two, we all get frustrated. Well, I'm going to tell you from experience, very few lifters out there, even at the very high level, that all three lifts they're badass at. Jennifer is one of them. Jennifer Milliken, you know, is a 57. She's the world record holder in the squat. I mean, that's badass. And benches, it's kilos. I mean, she's benched 102.5, which is 231? Wait, 226. And again, you know, for someone that's 57 kilos, that's pretty badass. Now, that's not an American or world record, but, you know, and bench seems to be the lift that is the tougher lift, if you will. And then she's the American record holder at 57 kilos with 193 kilos in the deadlift. And so she's pretty adept at all three. I've seen Laura Phelps is the same, very good at all three, you know, holds records in all three. And Dave Hoff is another one for those types, you know. But then you'll see people like a Jen Thompson, who's got I would say, mediocre squat. She's a good puller, very good puller. And then it's outworld. It's not world record. It is, you know, it's insane at how, as a 63 kilo, and she's an early age master lifter, M1, you know, and I think at Bench World she benched 317 pounds. That's stupid. It's just stupid. So, but that gives you an example where you got someone who excels so well at one lift that it makes her a world beater, you know, that has a squat that, you know, has her down in the rank when they go into the bench, and then once bench is done, her, you know, her subtotal is out in front of everybody, and she pulls very well, you know, and it makes her a multi-time world champion. So by and large, you're going to have that one lift that for whatever reason your leverage is, you know, Jo is not a super tall lady, but she got the long femur. And long femurs, man, it just seems to be a struggle. You know, Melissa's that way. Man pulling, when we were at Strongman Nationals last year, Masters Nationals, I think it was 400 pounds was the axle pull. You know, and all these girls are national level competitors. Some of them went on to lift compete at Worlds. And Melissa was the only one that was able to even pull the weight, let alone do, you know, a couple of reps with it. But when it comes to the squat, man, we get above 90%. A lot of times we're rolling the dice. We don't know what we're going to get. And so you have long femurs, and she's really tight, and you know, just she's one of those athletes that's really tight. So you're going to have that lift. So hopefully what your takeaway is, if you're hitting PRs in something, you're not struggling. Now, how does it compare with the other lifts? No, it's the one that seems to come a little bit more difficultly, a little slower than the other two. So look at a way to find a positive spin. You've gone 3 weeks where you've hit a PR in the squat. Now, you missed some lifts, and I get that, and that's frustrating, and justifiably so. So we're going to reset. We're going to do some work on some other things, and we may even add a couple things to help that the core posterior chain on that auxiliary day, just to see if we can get a couple of other things moving along. So be positive. If celebrate the PR, and don't be satisfied, but be happy with it, and we'll get busy and get back to work. And that goes for the rest of you. You know, it's like the first vlog I made you guys is my very first online client, Thad, who's on bodybuilding.com. You never see him post anymore. I want to say it was like NC Tar Heel. I can't remember his handle. But anyway, I remember his first real training cycle. We had done about 10 weeks of training, and he had a bad week, and he asked me if we should change anything. You know, I just had a bad week. And I'm like, 90% of the time, you know, You did 10 weeks of training, you've had one difficult week, and now you want to change something. Again, I will tell you every time, whatever the endeavor, if it's getting laid 9 out of 10 times, and whatever technique I'm using to do so, I'm gonna stay with it, because 90% is a pretty heavy success rate. So keep in mind, if a guy's hitting over 300 in baseball, he's considered a badass. That's 30%. 30%. So 3 times out of every 10 times he's going up, he gets a hit, and it makes him $1 gazillion. So keep those things in mind. And you know, hopefully it's funny, it's entertaining, and it sticks with you that, you know, being strong is really fucking hard. You know, that again, I'm repeating myself. I love the premise of strength. The premise of strength is very, very simple. You pick enough stuff up and put it down heavy enough and stimulate the body, you'll get strong. It's really just as Neanderthalish, you know, and primal as that. But it's really, really hard. And that means not everybody can do it. And that's why I like it. I like the fact that, you know, I go into a gym and you see all the gym bros all swell up and spread the lats out and stuff like that. And I'm just some old fat guy, you know. But they know, you know, that this is a guy that looks pretty formidable. And so keep that in mind. You know, you're working hard, you're continuing, you know, on a weekly basis, improving. So remain positive, keep working, and keep it in perspective. All right. And Joe, we start that new training cycle next week. So enjoy, everybody.